Today I have a guest is Walker Deibel. Walker, welcome to the show. How are you?
John, thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here and honored to be hanging out with you today.
Well, I got to tell you, so here's why I have Walker Deibel on the podcast. Is because he's written a book called Buy Then Build. And he's also, if you go to Forbes, he's one of the 5 top recommended books to read. Buy Then Build. Yeah, it's a great read. I get it. I'd run to Amazon. I am not an affiliate, but I'd run to Amazon and get this book because it's a really great comprehensive overview. So, Walker, I want to talk to you about how you got into this Buy Then Build and your story about Viewpoint, because I'm familiar with Viewpoint. I've been in technology all my life. I lived in Silicon Valley, raised some capital. I was part of a startup called Turbo Squid. Eventually sold it to Shutterstock long ago, but Viewpoint I do remember. So tell me about that story.
Yeah, so if you really want to learn about sort of like my genesis into acquisition entrepreneurship, I would actually go back a number of years. Do you want to go back, or do you want me to talk about
back? Yeah, we got
okay. So it really was all about when I went to Washington University in St. Louis to get my MBA, right? And while I was there, I sort of had a couple of concentrations. One was in entrepreneurship, right? I knew I wanted my own business. I knew that this was the direction I wanted to go. And I sort of learned 2 things going through the MBA program. Number one is that MBA programs are really sort of engineered for middle management in large organizations. Or there's this sort of niche in entrepreneurship, which is all about like, we are going to raise capital from venture capital and sort of swing for the fences type innovative, startup companies, right? And these were really the 2 paths. And the problem, of course, with the sort of, the startup model is that it's got an extremely high failure rate, right? If you really start to unpack it, I started to learn like, okay, this is actually a venture capital game. Venture capital are the ones that actually win, and any given entrepreneur has a strong likelihood of failure, right? And it turns out that 96% of all companies in the United States never exceed $1 million in revenue, okay? And when you start to look at the venture capital companies themselves, 75% of VC-backed firms go completely to zero, right? So we started this company. I kind of used my MBA as sort of like a resume shield, to start a company. Me and a few classmates got the license to using what is now called Real 3D, right? Like you go to the movie theater and you wear the 3D glasses. We had that in 2003, but used for point of purchase advertising. Okay, so we were licensing this technology. We were in big talks with a national retailer who I don't think I'm allowed to say who it is. I'll just say it rhymes with Walmart. And they were going to kind of like roll it out nationwide, and we had these sort of point of purchase, 3D things. We learned it really like increased retention, like tenfold, right? We lost the license, like basically in one day, okay? And they never, and I can't even tell you if it's the same company or the same exact technology that went on to become Real 3D, but like I like to imagine that they were like, listen, we're talking to James Cameron. We've decided we're going to go make Avatar. We don't need you 3 MBA students in St. Louis. You know what I mean? So this was like my first big failure. There was an Achilles heel. We came in second in the business plan competition. We had a customer on the hook. We had financing starting to line up, and the whole thing ended in failure, which, if you read or listen to the top entrepreneurs, like the iconoclastic entrepreneurs, they will often say, I just took a lot of at-bats, right? Because it's all about failing. It's about learning from your failures and getting out there and trying again, okay? Yep. When I graduated, I was one of, I think, 2 students who didn't actually look for a job during school, right? So I had this really promising startup. And I went from being like an MBA student with a really promising startup to being completely unemployed and not a student, like in a couple of weeks, right? And so it was one of these things where I knew that I had already like sort of pounded the pavement to raise a bunch of capital. I didn't have another idea that felt like that wasn't, all my ideas were like too big, you know what I'm saying? And so I knew there was a way to sort of acquire an existing business. And once I started to think about it, I was like, these existing companies, they're bankable. Like I can go to the bank and just get the money. I don't have to do a 12 to 14 month roadshow. It's got existing cash flows, it's got existing customers, it's got product market fit, and it has the infrastructure and all of the things that we as startup entrepreneurs are trying to build from scratch. So why wouldn't we sort of like start on first base, right? Almost like a sabermetrics, but for entrepreneurship.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Do you follow Keith Cunningham out of Texas? That guy?
I hate to say that I don't. I don't know who that is.
Great guy. He calls it buying a plane that's already flying versus trying to buy a plane on the ground. Like it's never been proven to take off. Yeah.
Well, it's sort of like the rocket analogy, right? Like rockets will use 90% of their fuel or a little more, I think, to actually get out of orbit, right? And so
it's only 67 miles up.
That's right. 67, 68, whatever it takes. Yeah. No, that's exactly right. So it takes so much capital and so much effort to go from zero. They're like, why wouldn't you just go buy, if you buy a company that's doing $1 million in revenue, okay? When I was an MBA student, that was such a small company, I ignored it, right? It's larger than 96% of all companies in the United States. It's such a low bar for being so extraordinary and exceptional.
I know this is kind of a offshoot here, but what do you think of micro-acquire? The guy is gaining a lot of traction, but a lot of these businesses, like they're the rejects from the VCs.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying that, I'm not being mean by saying that. I'm just saying that they can't raise money because they're just not growing fast enough. Are they just on like a cigarette butt on their last type of life cycle on this?
So, okay, if you look at traditional private equity, right? I mean, they really like to party in the sort of like middle market. Okay, so sort of like 25 million to 250 million in acquisition value, right? Once you start getting below that, then you have this sort of like, what you might call an acquisition entrepreneur and the sort of like Main Street market, sort of sub $5 million acquisitions. And when you are, when you're going to do a transaction that's between like 6 million and 25 million, there's really that's where the barbell thins out. The market gets even thinner, right? And so the thing is like, if you look at sort of the average, deal size of a search fund, you're looking at like 12 or 13 million dollars, right? So something that's a little bit bigger than maybe a financial buyer, but something that's definitely smaller than traditional private equity. But you're still getting a couple $1 million in adjusted EBITDA, right? So these are very meaningful companies. It's just that these private equity firms have, I believe it's like $3 trillion now just in dry powder.
$3 trillion.
Yeah. So
$2 trillion.
Yeah. So since they put in 40 to 60% equity infusion into every deal, you can take that 3 trillion, multiply it by 2. That's how much money they need to deploy. Okay. So the thing is like, these are not bad companies. The private capital markets have had better returns than any other asset class in the world for decades. Okay. And so it's people who own companies are the people that are getting the best returns, period. And the thing is that like by targeting under private equity, that's exactly what my whole career has been about. Right. I mean, that's to me the gem where you can sort of get in, but there's not a whole bunch of institutional capital like driving the price up and sort of like fighting you for those opportunities. So if you can manage it and if you can get the capital, I think that's the golden ring right there.
If you can get the capital, that's the biggest deal. So let's go back to that viewpoint. So what happened to the viewpoint where you tried to raise the capital and then it just.
Yeah, viewpoint was great. So backing up just a little bit, okay, I ended up going corporate after my MBA. Like I couldn't figure out how to actually buy a business. Like I started and I started realizing like this market is fragmented, it's opaque, I can't get any good information, and everything from an investment banker to a business broker to an M&A advisor, like I just couldn't figure it out fast enough, right? So I ended up going corporate.
Just curious, were your parents in business entrepreneurs? Did they buy or something?
You got it. So my dad ended up owning a company after 2 people died. He worked there. I'd say he worked there for 20 years. And 2 people died, and he ended up with the company. The thing that maybe to your point, both of my grandfathers owned their own companies.
Yeah. That's
both
the
sides.
entrepreneurial steer. I'm not saying you can't do it, but sometimes it's passed down this, like, here's what you should be doing because.
That's right. That's right. I mean, the thing is that like, you'll see my book is actually dedicated to the memory of my grandfather, Bob Deibel. And Bob bought, he had a feed company, like while it was being like rolled up by these big firms, right? So he had like a cattle feed company, ended up selling it based off of the balance sheet, took the offer, sold the business, and then he went out and he acquired a filter company. Okay. So he actually bought a small business and did this, right? And so the thing is like, we look at, all these iconoclastic entrepreneurs and we're just like, oh man, Jeff Bezos and like Elon Musk and all these things. And like, they grace the covers of these magazines and it's all about the startup. But the truth is these are exceptional people. These are exceptional results. And the thing is that like, if you want to, just use the baseball analogy again, if you want to get in and swing for the fences with like the best hitters, in the league, then like you can do that. Or you can focus on getting on base, right? And we all know, we've all seen Moneyball, and I mean, this is how the sort of like underdog, baseball teams were able to win World Series, right? So the thing is, and the thing that's slightly less well known, by the way, is that Elon Musk acquired PayPal, and he acquired Tesla. These were small businesses that he bought, right? So we all like to think like, oh, he's a co-founder of all these things. He actually got sued by changing his title to co-founder of Tesla. He got sued by one of the real co-founders, right? So the thing is like, it's not about starting from scratch. Like buying a company at $1 million in revenue and accelerating the value creation is entrepreneurship at its purest form, right? So whether that be starting completely from zero or starting off the ground, you're still doing the same job.
Yeah.
Your question was about viewpoint. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Let me circle back. Okay.
Jumping around because when you mention this, it's like, okay, if I set myself in the shoes of Elon Musk and I'm looking at all these companies on micro acquire where there's no broker dealer relationship, they just charge $300 to get on there. And like, well, if I can identify a trending opportunity where the guy's already got it started, could be a good opportunity, just like Elon.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that, through my career, I have ended up acquiring $16.5 million in revenue. Okay. And it ended up being over, 7 different companies and like 3 or 4 different verticals. Right. And frankly, if I did it again, instead of acquiring, instead of thinking of myself as sort of like the smallest little private equity firm that no one's heard of, I wish I had bought all in one vertical, right? Because that's a huge company, and you get multiple expansion or valuation expansion as you get bigger into different pockets, right? So, pulling it back around, I went corporate, and then I started looking for a business to acquire while I was working. And I ended up, we can go into this story if you want, but I ended up buying my company. Well, hold on. I ended up buying my first company, which was Corley Printing Company. Okay.
Corley Printing Company.
Yeah. And I ran this company for 7 years. Okay. And then I ended up exiting to an acquisition target. Okay. What happened was when I exited in 2013, between you and me and everyone listening to this, it was the same month that I paid the last payment on the debt to acquire the business. Okay. So I had an exit, a meaningful exit on that day. And the thing was I was like, all right, what am I going to do with this? And this is where Viewpoint came along. I did the startup thing again. Okay. You already know how this ended.
We already know. This ends, yeah.
Yeah. So Viewpoint, I mean, what Viewpoint had going for it was a great technology, a proven dev team. We had the CTO of a publicly traded company working with our dev team. We recruited a Microsoft executive to be our CEO. We went through one of the top 10 accelerator programs in the world. We oversubscribed the capital raise, and we couldn't actually get anyone to go from a free, beta to actually paying for it. Okay. And I think that like a lot of times people are like, oh, we didn't have product market fit or whatever. Our core issue with that company was that users loved it. They relished the experience of Viewpoint. The problem was that our target market was multiple users inside huge companies. So we needed the CTO of these companies to sort of like take half an hour with us and allow us to integrate it into their SharePoint system on their server. Okay, that's all we needed. And the thing was that like what we concluded was the users loved it. It was never important enough for a CTO to become like one of the top 3 things that a CTO was spending time on, right?
Yeah.
And so when we pivoted to try to sell it directly to consumers, we ended up shutting down SharePoint servers across the country with different companies. And that was, #fail. Don't do that. So it's sort of like our end users wanted it, but the one person sort of like holding the purse strings and like access to the server, like we were never important enough for them. So it completely fell apart. No paying customers. Yeah, I mean, we were running beta programs at, I don't want to name them, but like, if I said these firms, you would know all of them, right? I mean, they were big companies. We just couldn't get it around the corner. So we ended up selling, I say I've had 2.5 exits, Viewpoint being a half, because we sold the code base for 10 cents on the dollar, right?
Oh, geez, yeah.
Did
they take any of the acqui-hires with them, the programmers, or just total?
It was actually the employer of the third-party development team that was also a minority shareholder that ended up acquiring the thing.
Oh,
right?
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So they took it in-house and went with it that way, which was the right move. We were just glad that they wanted to buy it. I don't know the status of it now. I don't know. So I wish I could tell you.
Well, I have a story on that. I was part of Intuit, and my buddy launched Step Up, which was, this is where the early days of the internet. He goes like, it helps small businesses get found on the internet. And Intuit bought the company for $60 million, shut everything down in 1 year, and kept the 2 developers. It just, technology didn't do what we thought it could do.
Yeah.
And just the way the internet was moving this day, but they did keep a couple of the programmers, and that's it. But he made out with $10 million.
Yeah, well, that's nice. That's nice. And yeah, I mean, it's like it still had legs, and whatever. But coming back to my journey, it was one of these where I was like, how come? Like, look, every time I start a company, I can't get it to work. And not only that, but like, look at the empirical evidence. It's the same as everybody else. Right. And so,
million ways to die in the West, and a million ways
right?
to follow the startups, man. Yeah.
So that's when I was like, look, I mean, when you buy an existing company, you've got all the benefits that I just talked about, and I've taken a couple of really strong at bats here with startups, so I'm going to go out and buy companies. And so I went out and I bought 6 companies over about 3 to 5 years.
Yeah. What's the first one that you bought?
The first one I bought was it was a fulfillment company based out of Springfield, Missouri. Okay, and the thing is that when I went down there, so it was a broker that I knew and had worked with in the past, right? And he called me and he said, "How's that startup going?" And I was like, "Oh, Gary, it's on the rocks." And he said, "Good. There's a business down here. You got to see it. It's a perfect fit for you. Get down here." And I went down and I sort of walked in, I pulled up and I sort of looked at the place, and it was this very, what's what I'm looking for? Unassuming building, right? I mean, just, run of the mill small business, right? And I walked in and I met the 2 owners, and my first hot take was, there's no way, like, this is not going to work, right? But it was one of these where, I'd driven down there and I had a couple of hours with them. And so I ended up figuring out that they had this really archaic sort of legacy ordering system that like all of their customers were actually using. Okay. And it needed to be, what I ended up seeing was like, okay, if we can upgrade this software, then what we can do is create an Amazon-like experience for inside businesses to use with multiple locations. Okay.
I got to ask you, because I know where you're going in this, because I've done that before. Are you applying your startup expertise on saying, I'm going to really?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the thing is like, when I think about what should I acquire or where should we grow or like why startups work or not, it's really all about trying to harness the trends that are happening, right? And if you go back in your mind to like 2013 or 14, right? I mean, Amazon was exploding, right? And so this was like, okay, let's do this in the B2B space. And so I bought the company. I used the cash flow of the company to build a proprietary e-commerce storefront that we then rolled out to, once it was built, we rolled it out to all of our customers, and we had over 20,000 users in the first week. Okay.
Let me go back.
I want to say one thing, which is everything we were trying to accomplish at Viewpoint. I did it in 8 months by buying a small business and then, using the cash flow to build the whole product and then rolled it out to existing customers.
Your eyeballs just like well, boom, man. What a time difference and absence of frustration. Yeah. So how did that negotiation go with the guy? I mean, the cash flow out of the business, was it SBA loan or?
Yeah, I took it was textbook buy then build strategy. I put 10% down. I put a 10% cash infusion into the business, took an SBA loan for 90%, including accounts receivable minus payables, plus inventory, plus a little extra working capital cash.
A lot of carve outs. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So finance the 90% of the whole thing.
Did the guy exit the?
Yeah, he exited completely. I wrote him a check that day. I won't say never talk to him again, but basically never talked to him again. Yeah. He left. He was a great guy, very innovative guy. But I think he, I don't know what to say about him. I think one of his parents died, and he exited, and then he like bought a boat and with his wife, and they moved out to like the Pacific Ocean somewhere. I don't know.
Okay. That's one of the top 10 reasons why you leave a business. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So he had a good exit. Negotiation. It was pretty. So look, a lot of people will ask me like, like in the acquisition lab, I work with a number of financial buyers who are looking, how do I get this done? How do I buy a company? And I'll work with a lot of them. And a lot of times the question is sort of like, well, I don't know, like, what do you think? Like this business, there's a list price on it and they're asking like a 3.2 times. Like, shouldn't I see if I can get a 2.9 times or a 3 times earnings, or like, what do you think? Like, is it too expensive? John, I just want to tell you, like, more often than not, we're talking about like a 3 times earnings is basically 3 years of earnings. Okay. 3.2 times earnings or 2.9 times earnings, you're talking about months. Okay. I don't get hung up with that. I look at the cash flow, I stress test it, and I'm like, okay, here's the asking price. Fine, let's do it. So almost every single company I've bought, I've just paid the asking price. I don't get hung up in trying to negotiate the deal. I just, people are like, what should I offer? And I'm like, well, what's the asking price? Like, maybe throw that at them. Yeah. Right.
I look, you mentioned the stress test 2 or 3 times in your book. I love this, what you do for a company, because already I'm going to go, look, I'm going to finance this with debt or the cash flow of the company, and let's put it under stress test. And I'd recommend buying this book because he talks about that's exactly what you should do. If you can find a business that's doing $5 million, whatever, and he goes like, I need to borrow this money. Yep. Can the cash flow or the debt handle the business, handle that loan?
The best way to build confidence in yourself is to take that business and just break it in an Excel sheet.
Yeah.
What does it take to break it? And the thing is like, when you really start to look at that, it builds in a tremendous amount of confidence. Because a lot of these businesses, they can drop, 35% before you're really in trouble, right? And based on an acquisition with maximizing the debt like that, so I'm not saying like run out and buy whatever, but I think that if you want to build your confidence in terms of like, should you buy this company or not, look at the cash conversion cycle and then just break it in a spreadsheet, break the business, see what really needs to happen.
And you kind of related to a margin of safety that Warren Buffett talks about, and his mentor that wrote the book. So a margin of safety.
If you're going to buy a publicly traded company right now, I don't know what Apple's trading at, but it's probably like a 27, PE price to earnings ratio.
Yeah.
If you buy, a fulfillment company in Springfield, Missouri, you might be paying, 2.7 times instead of 27 times. right? So I mean, it's just like the margin of safety is simply in the fact that the market is thin, that these things are hard to transfer, and that when I went to sell that company, I was really looking for someone within a 90-mile radius of Springfield, Missouri, who knew how to buy companies, who knew that it made sense, who wanted to get in this particular company, right? And I mean, we had a number of people that we were talking to, but when you go to sell a company like this, like a bricks and mortar, style company, the market's pretty thin. You might be talking to one person, you might be talking to maybe three.
Yeah.
But you're looking for a very specific.
You were that guy just a year ago. Yeah.
That's right. So I don't look. It's probably a downfall of mine, but I typically don't get too hung up on the valuations when I'm buying or when I'm selling. I don't try to drip every piece of juice out of the thing.
Right.
Now,
is it the price terms ratio? If they get the price, you get the terms, or if you get the terms, they get the
good.
Price. Yeah.
Good. So the purchase price is really the sort of like that's like the country club number, right? You walk around the country club saying like, oh, I sold my business for $25 million, right? Well, what if there was a 25% equity rollover? The inventory was getting paid on consignment. There's a 20% earnout. There's and then you got to still work in the business for another 3 years, and they're paying you $100,000, and then there's an earnout component, and I mean it's just sort of like what really happened. So I mean, I've done deals, where we'll sell a company for, let's just pick a number, okay, $20 million, but they're only walking with 10 at closing, and then that 10 gets taxed.
Right.
So they've got $5 million, but like they can walk around the country club and say, hey, I sold for 20 million, and it's true. It's all in the terms.
Right.
All in the terms.
Yeah. Are you seeing that change right now with the frothy valuations? I mean, especially the private equity with $3 trillion.
Yeah.
Encroaching on. I got a lot of friends that, and this happened to me. I was looking at an IT firm that was doing $5 million. He gets an offer from a private equity firm. They just threw out a number right at the front to lock him up. And then, then they'll go through this
Run him through the mud.
due diligence to go, no, the couch is dirty over there. There's a blah, blah, blah. And then it's down. And by that time, he's committed. So
if you are a seller and you're selling to a private equity firm, and, let's just say they're based in, Chicago, and they run you through the mud, right? And you got to do all the like really hard ultra due diligence stuff with private equity firms. And they're paying a really high multiple, okay, like a high valuation compared to market. And then they say, okay, we've been in diligence for 4 months, and it's been a grueling experience for you. We're going to close. Why doesn't everyone fly out to Chicago, and then we'll just close in the morning?
Oh,
You're about to get screwed. You're about to get screwed.
That is the MO, man.
That's when they walk in. You're sitting there at the closing table, and they walk in, and they're like, oh, we need to change it, just a couple of these things here, right? Because now they got you, right?
Yeah. And by the way, I need you to stay on for 3 years. What?
Exactly.
Yes. So 7 different businesses, but when did you find that, gosh, I just need to specialize in a niche? You bought this fulfillment company, I get out. What was next? And what was next? And I go like, I need to just focus.
Honestly, I didn't really want to even sell the fulfillment company. It just became like, I sort of like lost a key man, and it was like 3.5 hours from my house. And I had like again, my mistake was buying in too many verticals. And so I'm going to quote the movie Print the Legend. It's like the second ever Netflix original. And it starts off with this quote that says, when you're a leader, when you're CEO, every day something comes up and smacks you in the face, right? And the thing is that's true, okay? And when you own, 3 different companies and 3 different verticals with 3 different business value propositions, 3 different customer profiles, 3 different suppliers, all the rest of it, my head was just on swivel all the time. Right. Yeah. The thing is, it's like my phone would ring and it would be like, all right, what's up? And it was just like having to solve problems.
It was just a problem.
It was just the problems. Yeah. So I really needed to start to get things off my plate, right? So today I own 2 companies, that I've acquired. And in a weird twist of irony, I started the acquisition lab to teach people how to buy businesses. But anyway, so I own a railing company. We do a fabricated aluminum railing, and then I also own an online e-commerce business where I sell toilets.
Okay, that's really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
This is funny because I talked to Joe Valley. I was talking to him, and I go, "Okay, Joe, this company that you built up to 1,000 employees, you said it's digestive. What the heck was that?" And he goes, "It's colon cleanse."
That's great.
So you guys are in the same kind of business.
Me and Joe?
We're in the same business. He was in the colon cleanse. You're in the toilet business.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. I'm the receiver.
So
he's the giver. I'm the receiver. Can I say that on the air?
I immediately regret that. So what the railing business? Now, why were you attracted to that? That sounds like another, like physical manufacturing plant with lots of employees,
which I love. I mean, a couple of reasons. Look, number one, so if you're on the coast, okay, you have you've got salt water, and you have to have custom built fabricated aluminum railing that's powder coated so that it doesn't corrode and rust. Okay, you have to have it.
Yeah, so the Golden State Bridge is painted every year with this.
Yeah. Okay. So the thing is like that's where that product lives. But once you get into the middle of the United States, you really have 2 options: steel or rickety screw together aluminum. Steel is often rusted right when you put it in. Okay, you start putting in this rickety screw together aluminum stuff in St. Louis, and it gets hot, it gets cold, it gets hot, it gets cold, and it's just like a really inferior experience, right? So the thing is like I bought this company because it wasn't reinventing the wheel, but it really is the only one supplying this superior product. It's got like a 25-year shelf life kind of a thing, right? And it just looks absolutely fantastic compared to anything else. So we do awnings, we do screen rooms, we do railing, we do single piece spiral staircases. And we've got the largest powder coat oven in the Midwest that I know of, right? So we'll put the entire staircase in the powder coat oven all at once, right? And
that's the big powder coat oven.
Exactly. And so the thing is like let's go back to startups. Feel free to run out and buy a large powder coat oven and try to sell services, or go buy a company that's already doing 7 figures in revenue and say like, okay, I can. This is a great product. No one else is doing it. And I can, I know how to grow it.
How did you find that one? Through a broker or network?
It was actually, so when I ended up selling through a broker. So the thing with deal flow is that once you get it, you can't ever turn it off.
Why is that? Tell me about that.
Well, it's just one of these things where, in the book, I talk a lot about, figuring out what, the business plus you, right? A lot of times we spend all this time looking at the business, trying to figure out like, what's the intrinsic value of this business? It's the wrong question. The magic is not in de-risking the acquisition. It's what do you bring to the table as the CEO of this company, okay? And so you need to figure that out. And what happened was, like a broker that I had met, I don't know, let's just say 5 years ago or more, I got an email from him because I just, you're out looking for a deal, you start getting on all these email lists, and all of a sudden this email shows up and it's, I'm looking at it and I'm like, I know exactly who should manage this company. And I called him up and I said, hey, wouldn't you say that you've done, more aluminum fabrication and finishing than like maybe anyone else in the regional Midwest? And he said, yeah. And I said, hey, there's this company for sale. You want to go look at it with me? He said, yes. And we drove out there and we looked at it and we walked through. And he's really, his background is like operational excellence and like just really making companies hum. And we're walking through and I'm thinking in my head, like, okay, as we're walking through, when we debrief later, he's going to tell me that, and that, right? And we got in the car and he said, Walker, this is like the second best opportunity I've ever seen. So I bought the company, put him in as the manager. And then, we just like increased throughput, and he is actually no longer with the business. He went on and did other things, but I bought it because we knew that we could get in there and improve profitability and throughput immediately.
Yeah.
And so now,
Was it a job for him, or did you offer him equity, or?
Yeah, so he actually had phantom equity, which is what
Yes,
I like.
I never applied it, but yeah.
I like phantom equity. And the reason why, for those listening, stock only matters, really on the day of exit, right? I mean, that's when you get the reward, right? I mean, every other time there's really no benefit to owning equity, I guess, unless there's a whole bunch of equity holders and you need like, the politics of it. But so the thing is with phantom stock, what it means is like, look, you work here, you add value, we exit, like you get this piece of the company, right? But if you quit, then you're walking away from the equity, right? And now I, who have a personal guarantee on, the acquisition capital, okay, I get to retain all of my company, and I don't have like a vesting schedule. And now that you're fully vested, you left me, right? I don't want pieces of my company flying around elsewhere, right? So you either stay with me or you don't. He ended up getting an amazing offer that I would have taken if I were in his shoes. It's just, so he ended up leaving. But John, the point is that like so many of these baby boomer companies had product market fit, before the internet. Okay. And so the thing is like, I think that the sort of like golden ring that is the greatest opportunity of our lifetime is not only the fact that you've got $10 trillion. Okay, it's like 46% of the economy needs to change hands by the end of the decade.
Yeah, the baby boomers, yeah,
huge. But the thing is that like these companies were all built in this sort of old economy, and by using new economy levers of value acceleration, okay, if you can take that old economy infrastructure and grow it using the new economy frameworks that we have, that right there is the biggest opportunity that we have. If you can get that right.
So that guy that you hired, I mean, it's a big part of finding a business. You trusted him with your business to build, even to like look for the ways he can improve and to grow it. And did he just like, hey, I'm leaving, I'm going to take this, and he tell you up front, or was it nice?
No. Very, very stand up exchange. I mean, he couldn't have done better. It was one of these where, he had been chased, and ultimately, the guy who ended up hiring him ended up in a hospital bed and just basically called him and said, what's it going to take? I mean, he couldn't, so he just had a different opportunity and went a different way. But he told me what was happening. He exited perfectly. He even helped me hire his replacement. But I didn't hire those people anyway. I had someone else that I pulled from my bench.
So you guys took it over. Did you grow it? Would you say after how many years have you owned it?
Yeah. Let's see. I've owned that for, let's say, what year is it? It's 2021. I probably bought it in 2016. So you have to understand, like when you have, the first piece of acquisitions is that you get equity buildup just like real estate, right? So the thing is like if you buy a business with debt, even if you don't grow it, and the value of that company stays exactly the same, just by the company bringing cash in and paying the debt down, you're building up equity so that when you go to exit at that same dollar figure, you get all of that money, right? It's
leverage. I love that.
That's step one. That's step one. Step two is appreciation of the asset, right? So like, how do we grow this thing? We've definitely grown it. We definitely have a very strong culture now. And how much have we grown it? I'm on the spot, so I don't know, but I would say we've probably grown it 25 to 30% over the last 5 years.
And the people working there, good salt of the earth people.
I mean, it's a fantastic, I love this company. Like I mean, look, I've got an e-commerce company. Like I love the 4-hour work week model as well. Right.
Yeah.
The thing is like when you walk, I've got 3 buildings, like when you go out there, I've got 3 different buildings. I got guys sparking metal. It's just like seeing the physical product and like the stuff coming out of the ovens. I mean, the guys come out and they've just got like paint all over their faces. It's just like, yes, like there's just something about, making things that has gotten lost in the new economy, and I just think,
that's a kind of point I want to make. That's a contrast to building an internet company where you just go like, it's dead, move on. I don't care. It's dead, move on. Let's go.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
But this people, you have people on your payroll and they become, would you say they're family or just still employees? I mean, friends, or you keep that distance?
You have to keep that distance. I have never crossed that line, right? Like I don't, and it's not like, the thing is like, I want to work with people that I respect, but we don't necessarily need to be friends. Like, we're all there with an agenda, which is to create value, right? So it's never been my goal to do that. And in fact, I'm on the board of a company where it's a startup. It's a very successful startup. And the CEO found out that the employees were going out and like having drinks and like weren't inviting them. And it was one of these where it's like, yes, that's exactly right. Like
I have no interest in attending a bunch of employees.
Exactly. Like it kind of hurt his feelings. Like, he was like, I thought we were friends. And it's like, no, you're not friends. Like, there's employees and there's owner operators, right? Like, that's the difference. And as much as you can pretend that line isn't there, it's there. It's there. And the thing is that like, when my employees, who I love and value and respect, go home at night and go to sleep, they're not up thinking about like, what's coming at me? Like how do I manage the cash flow of this business? How do I grow this business? I've got a personal guarantee on, 85, 90% of this company. I mean, it's real problems, right?
You've owned that for 5 years. Is that loan almost paid off?
It's a 10-year SBA note. So
10-year SBA.
We're halfway. It's all downhill now. Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah.
By the way, I want to say something. When I buy a company, I don't want people to think like, oh, this sounds great. I'm going to run out and buy a company doing $500,000 and then I'm just going to start paying myself like hot and heavy right away. I really focus and promote eat ramen noodles. Okay, make this like a bootstrapping exercise. Build up cash. Don't make a mistake, right? So you want to build up cash and don't jump in and start paying yourself like a huge salary right away. Okay,
yeah, I'm a fan of Warren Buffett.
You will succeed. Okay, as long as you live low on that totem pole at the beginning. Okay,
I'm in a complete agreement. I'm on the same side. Like, if you read anything about Warren Buffett, he spent a total of $300,000 on office, everything in the last 30 years. I mean,
that's incredible. Yeah.
He applies capital. His capital allocation is just like, it needs to be reinvested in the business or given back to the investors. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. So, but the thing is that like look, I mean, the default rate on acquisitions with SBA loans has remained below 2% for decades. Okay.
Yeah.
The highest it ever went to was like 1.7%. The number one lender that I work with has had one default. Okay. When you start looking
at a bank that you would like to mention,
different realms. So I don't want to confuse everybody. So there's plenty of awesome banks out there. It just depends on what you're looking for, right? But the point is that like, if you look at the data coming out of Stanford, okay, there's a lot of data that's going into the search fund community, right?
Yeah.
So the thing is that like you can start looking at returns and you'll see that, on our fulfillment business, we got a 52% compounded annual growth rate during the 5 years I owned it, right? You can look at, 10% of these acquisitions are getting 10%, IRRs, okay? If you look at internal rate of return, okay? When you look at about 30% of them though, okay? 25 to 30% of these acquisitions are just kind of breaking even. Like they're not, so then you've got about 70% of them. It's actually 69% that are more than doubling their money while they do this. Okay, but the 30% is kind of clawing by. The point is that your risk is not in defaulting. Your risk is in becoming one of the 30% that isn't doing very much, right? And so the thing is that like you need to protect yourself, and the way you protect yourself is not fail. And so rule one is going to be pay yourself nothing, build up cash during that first couple of years, and build up strength in your margin of safety so that you don't get in a bad situation.
How much time do you spend with that railing company?
Not a lot right now because I have an excellent CEO in there. So I probably spend an hour a week and then probably another like half a day meeting once every 60 days.
Yeah, I think time is the one commodity you can't be any buy-in of, and that's
right.
really important to that.
Yeah,
understand and see that.
Yeah. And especially if you're going to buy a company based on sellers' discretionary earnings, and then you put in a manager, now you're really operating off of adjusted EBITDA, okay? And those numbers are different, okay?
Mhm.
And the thing is that like it becomes even more important to not take cash out and just build up cash and let the company start to build equity over time. So the thing is there's sort of a scale or a spectrum. And I think on the one hand, you can say like, okay, I'm going to own this business. I'm going to operate this business and I'm going to pay myself to do it. Okay. On the other hand, you can say like, all right, I'm going to acquire this business. I'm going to put someone else in. I'm going to keep all my time, but I'm not going to take any cash. We're going to leave it all there and then just build up cash. And then once you hit a point where your cash balance is exceeding your sort of working capital needs, that's when you start taking distributions.
Yeah.
Right.
Do you have any plans to take this railing business and look at her other agency type businesses or competitors in the area, so you get it to a level where you're going to get the best payout with the private equity?
Yeah. So I think that the thing is that like the upside potential of this business is actually enormous, right? So I think that it's all about making decisions around how we want to do that. And I'll leave it vague and just say we have a number of different options that we could go to grow it aggressively, and we just need to kind of decide which one.
Yeah, I the only reason I brought that up because if you said, hey, I got a company doing railings and then an e-commerce company selling toilets, the private equity company who'd offer you the biggest price goes, I'm not seeing the synergy between those two.
Yeah, well, those are different legal entities, by the way.
Yeah.
Every time I buy a company, it's a different legal entity.
How did you come across the toilet company? Why the toilet company?
Yeah, so again, I've got this sort of passion for old economy meets new economy, right? Mm-hmm. And when I ran the printing company, we had a book printing company, and the thing is during that time, the iPad came out. The Kindle came out, like newspapers were going out of business, and like in a last act of desperation, they started going after our customers. So we had a lot of technological innovations sort of coming at us, right? I ended up using that to sort of create the strategy of the company. Different story. The point is, there is no technological innovation on the horizon that will keep us from needing to poop and pee every day.
Oh my God. You are a Warren Buffett fan because he talks about, I look for businesses where the behaviors don't change. Like
That's
if
right.
I buy a gum, they're going to be chewing gum for the next 100 years.
That's right.
They're going to be buying insurance. They're going to be traveling on trains, etc.
Yeah. So the thing is my site is called SantaFlow Depot. Okay. And basically what the SantaFlow product does is it allows you to install a toilet anywhere at about 1/10 of the cost. Okay. So instead of bringing a plumber in with a jackhammer and like running new pipes in your house, okay, that's going to take 4 or 5 days, maybe 8 to 12 grand. This is like $1,200, 4-hour DIY install, and you're done. Okay. And the thing is that it discharges out the back into a macerator, garbage disposal. Okay. and then it pumps it up through PVC piping, and you just run it to your existing stack.
Yeah.
So you're done. So just by rethinking.
So no longer clogged toilets. You don't have to bring somebody out there with that 30-foot snake. Yeah.
That's right. I thought about making a YouTube video, like, will it eat that? Just like flush like an iPhone, and I haven't done it, but
it's so gross. You might go viral. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's one of these things where just by rethinking, the toilet and plumbing, we're able to save people a bunch of money. So like you're finishing your basement, or you want to turn a closet into a bathroom, or someone gets injured and they have to live on the first floor, whatever the application might be. So
yeah,
cool.
And that was through a broker you found?
That was actually through Quiet Light Brokerage. which
Yeah, quiet. That was through quiet. Yeah.
my favorite. Yeah. So what happened was it was sort of a private listing. And
Oh, by the way, I got to stop you because I did ask Joe that question. No, we don't do that anymore because we want to get the best price.
so this was actually asked. That's true. We don't do that at Quiet Light because I'm with Quiet Light as well. But the point is this was a buyer that very specifically didn't want it out there. Okay. So this rarely happens. And so she wanted, or seller, I'm sorry, she wanted a really small pool of buyers. And Mark Dowse, the founder, asked the other brokers, like, hey, who's looking right now? Who's a good buyer? And I just talked to Joe Valley on a deal. And Joe told Mark, hey, you should call Walker with this one. Like he's fantastic. That's what he told me. He said, yeah. Anyway, I got the prospectus on, let's just say Thursday afternoon. I had Mark Dowse on the phone on Friday. I talked with the seller Friday afternoon. I put in an LOI full price on Saturday, and we were under LOI by.
You were already approved for SBA loan on that?
No, because that's not how it worked back then, right? But yeah. But you needed the deal first. But the point was that, like, here's the point: when you're a first time buyer, you can't make a decision that fast. You don't understand what you're looking at. You know what I mean? And so the thing is that, like, it was just, I looked at it and I was like, this, and I bought it. And I think on 3 different occasions, I've seen a prospectus, I've talked to the seller, and I've put in an LOI at full price. 3 different times.
Well, that's exactly.
I mean, like in like 48 hours, like just boom, right? So
that's exactly what the seller wanted.
Yeah, exactly. So the thing is that like think about the goodwill that I just built with the seller as well. It's like, all right, we're not screwing around on price. I don't care if it's a 3 or 3.2 or 2.9 or 3.4. I don't really care. It's about like, how
is Mark did the valuation, or Joe, if he's involved, and they are pretty good about that.
Yeah.
An accurate valuation for the business.
That's right.
Because of their formula they put on a business. Now they've probably modified that formula over the years, but 8,000 conversations later.
Yeah. And I mean, the valuation that I paid was a little hot, but it was a little hot by months. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't, I mean,
Yeah.
So, I mean, let's just say I own the company for 10 years. I mean, you don't die with a company. I mean, I have no plans to sell it, but like, if I own that company for 10 years and I ended up giving the seller, 90 days worth of earnings over what I should have paid, who cares?
Who cares?
Not me.
So what's next? I mean, what's next on the next type of acquisition? You got to be out there somewhere, but
yeah. So my life kind of moves in. I've got 3 buckets that I operate in, right? So my first bucket is sort of like businesses that I've acquired. So we talked about that. I own 2 right now. The second bucket is I'm actually a broker, an M&A advisor with Quiet Light. Okay. And so I help online entrepreneurs exit their businesses. All right. And then the third thing is everything sort of buy then build related, right? So I teach at WashU. I teach acquisition entrepreneurship. I do speaking engagements on buy then build, and the sort of magnum opus is the acquisition lab, where first time buyers kind of apply to work with us, and it's the first do it with you buy side advisory service, right? So it's world-class education, it's coaching, it's tools, and it's community. And we really have, even at like 150 people, we have the single largest vetted community of buyers, right? Because no one's done it before. That's why I can do it, so low. But so I've got about 150 buyers. And the irony, of course, which we mentioned, is now I've got a startup again, right? The acquisition lab. But
yes.
But here's the thing. What's next for me, which was your question, is I just quietly launched a website called searchlist.com. Okay. And the concept is the following. The private capital markets have better returns than any other market, right? But in order to get involved with that, you have to buy a privately held company, right? I've got 150 people right now that I'm working with that are actively looking for businesses to acquire. They would welcome, equity investment. Why wouldn't they? Now they can buy bigger deals. They can reduce their risk on earnings. Maybe they have to come up with no, 0 out-of-pocket cash. And so the point of Search List is to generate a newsletter that has investors signing up so that we can match as soon as my buyers get deals under contract. we can run a newsletter and invite incoming capital. So we closed our first deal and had 5 million in capital raise, and our second one right now looks like it's going to raise about 7. Right?
It's like an angel list and a syndicate.
That's exactly what it is. I want to create the angel list for lower middle and Main Street private market.
I love that. That's great.
That's it.
Are you taking a piece of the company also in that with your value you bring, or?
Yeah, I'm still working through the business model, frankly, John. I mean, I'm just trying to like get deals done right now. But the way it's currently priced is we're taking 2% on the equity raised.
Yeah.
So not big dollars at 5-7 million. No one cares about the 2%. But we'll see how it goes. I want to start. What I'm doing is I'm actually following how AngelList started, which was a newsletter, and then they started getting deals done, and then they created the platform, right? So you look at, say, like searchfunder.com, and I think it's a fabulous site. I think it's more like LinkedIn for that kind of MBA group of searchers. But I think SearchList is the sort of angel list for these types of deals.
God, I love that idea, man. That's great. I've been a part of AngelList for a long time, and it's funny how they go, gosh, I got a list of 50,000. Some are very wealthy. What should I do with it?
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, we've got about 40 investors on SearchList right now, and I don't know for sure, but I look at the names and I know the size of some of these people and firms, and I mean, there's already over 100 million signed up, just looking to invest. So now I'm just trying to figure out, like, okay, how do we get them the deals they want, and how do we sort of get these acquisition entrepreneurs the money that they're after, right?
Yeah. And then you're kind of doing cradle to grave with being associated with this part and the deal flow, with the book, with the exit.
Yeah.
And finance and everything in between. Yeah. Well, look, it's I've already talked to you for an hour, and I think I could go for 2 hours, but I appreciate your time on this. This is fantastic.
Yeah. Joe, thank you so much. I love talking about nothing else.
I have to recommend everybody get out and buy this book on Amazon. I am not an affiliate, so I don't make any commission on it. I just enjoyed the read. It's very good. Buy then build. Thanks, Walker.
John, thanks so much. Great to be with you.
Cheers.